Welcome back. I'm Paul Tilley, and today I'd like to discuss consumer behavior, which is Chapter 5 in the textbook and Section 5 in your course. In this chapter and section, we're looking at the issue of why is it consumers buy what they buy, and when do they buy things? What influences someone to decide to make a purchase? And that's a very important concept within marketing because we have to understand how the buyer thinks in order to be able to meet the customer's needs and provide the products and services that they want. So this section builds upon a theoretical model, and one of the key things that you have to understand in this section is this theoretical model. First, I'd like to explain it. When you consider something to buy, something has to cue you to buy it. You have what we call in here a problem. You, for example, are hungry. That is a problem. And the first thing you're going to do when you encounter that problem is think about what alternatives you have. So if you were to think about those alternatives, what you have to do is move from the problem section to an information search. You go out and you seek out as much information as you can in order to be able to help resolve that problem. So for example, if you're hungry, you might think about, well, what is it I'd like to eat? What are some of the things that would be available to me? So if you're in the house, you might look in the fridge. You might look in the cupboard. You might look anywhere you can imagine. If you're driving down the street, you might look at all the places that have food for sale. That's really what we call an information search. You're going out and you're trying to seek as much information as possible. Now, do you necessarily pick the first thing you see? No, because what you're doing is piling up a list of alternatives. And really, we need to be able to evaluate all of these alternatives, and that's really the next stage in the purchase decision process. So we go from a problem to information searching to an evaluation of possible alternatives, and you're going to take all the alternatives and you're going to start narrowing it down. So you're going to say, well, I certainly don't want chicken today, no, and I don't want something that's barbecued, and I don't want something that's fried, maybe bread sandwich, maybe a sandwich would do. So what you're doing is narrowing it down, and we call this really our evoked set, and this evoked set is really the narrowed list of things that you would like to do to resolve the problem. Now, once you decide, which is really the next stage, then you eat your sandwich. And you eat your sandwich that you decide you bought, and you think to yourself, gosh, I really didn't like that sandwich, or gosh, that was a great sandwich. You're going to have some post-purchase perspective on the sandwich to say, I wish I didn't buy that. Or that was really good, I should have had 2 of those, or I didn't have enough, or some reaction to your purchase. So that is what's called a post-purchase behavior. So in summary then, whenever you make a purchase, there are 5 distinct stages. First, you identify a problem, then you seek information to resolve that problem. Next, you evaluate all of the alternatives that information yields. Then you make a decision. Once you make your decision, then you evaluate whether or not that was a good decision. So that's the basic theoretical model of problem solving within the purchase decision process. Okay, let's move on to the next section.